Hi, welcome to my podcast, Becoming a Cut Flower Grower. I'm your host, Lydia, and I'm here to share my year of growing and selling cut flowers. I'll be giving you the lowdown on everything I'm doing and sharing all the highs and lows, the good times and the inevitable disasters, all in real time. Join me on my cut flower journey, starting right now. Well, it's been a while since I have recorded on the field, so I thought you might like to join me this evening as I feed the ducks and the chickens, and then I thought you might like to come on a tour of the field with me. Let me just put this food down for these guys. Hey guys. Hello everybody. Where's Kermie? She's missing, isn't she? Again. Okay, there we go. There we go. Blissful silence when the food hits the ground. No eggs. No, too hot for eggs, I think. So we've got a missing chicken, and that is Kermie. Kermie's one of the babies that was hatched out in August last year. Kermie's a really naughty girl. She's divided up. Well, she's in the main enclosure with Roland. And then there's like this mesh fence that prevents her from getting into the VIP section, which is where Molly and her mother, Gooseberry, are living, because they need to stay away from the cockerels. And one day, Kermie managed to push through this netting and got into Molly and Goose's side, and she laid an egg in their nest box. And now the only place she will lay an egg is their nest box. So no matter what improvements I make to this net, and I've got all sorts of screws and fastenings and pieces of wood and you name it, I've built it. Every day I come up here at tea time and Kermie's managed to get through to the wrong side. And it's so frustrating, but once chickens get fixated on something, like when they go broody, you literally cannot change their mind for love nor money. And this is the position I'm in with Kermie. And I don't want her to stay with these guys permanently because she's only a baby. She's only a year old. And Molly and Goose are really old, like over 5 years old. So it's not the right environment for her to be in. She needs to be with the others. But short of building an entire proper wall, which I think is what I'm actually going to have to do, every evening I have to come in, pick her up and carry her and put her back into the main enclosure. And every evening there is some slight resistance to this. And what's more, somebody is eating the egg that she lays every day anyway. So it's either her or Molly or Goose, or it's the rats again, because the rats I know have been at the eggs, which is very disappointing because I spend about £1 a day on food for the chickens and the ducks. And sometimes I get to sell the eggs and it kind of helps to pay for the food. But if they're all getting eaten constantly, I can't do that. So that's those guys done. Let's go down and feed Lion. Lion's got Kiki D, Shirley, although actually I think it's Piggy, and little Mo in with him. So when I first got my chickens 5 years ago, they all looked different. And I chose them, and I think it was strategic, now I look back on it, because it made identifying them really, really easily. And then when I got these babies, actually it must be 2 years ago now, they're all a type of Moran, and they were all very, very similar colours, apart from, well, actually, no, Roland was the same colour. And as they've got older, it's so difficult to identify some of them. So, I mean, I had twins, actually. I had Kylie and Danny Minogue. But Kylie passed away last year, so I can identify Danny quite easily. But Shirley and Piggy, I get them mixed up all the time. And since Shirley got put in with Lion, I think now it's actually Piggy, which is just very confusing. Anyway, Molly has got Danny and Dove, and they are perfectly fine. Lion has stopped kicking me, actually, which is great news. I still go in there armed with something every time, like a bucket or a scoop or a dustpan lid, something, just in case he changes his mind, because I'm back in shorts and I really, really don't want any more scratches down my leg. So that's all the birds fed. Nothing else to do for them. So let's head down onto the plot. Now, it has been absolutely mentally hot since I last spoke to you on Friday. So the temperature went up on Saturday, went up on Sunday, and then yesterday, Monday, and today, Tuesday. Unbelievably hot. I think we had 35 degrees today. Or, yeah, half an hour down the road was recorded 35 degrees centigrade, which is actually the second hottest May day in the UK ever recorded, which is pretty epic, and it has been epic. But I'm very pleased to say that everything is fine. So I'm getting ahead of myself here. When you come in the plot, I did have this beautiful bark pathway, which whoever it was, Shirley or Piggy, getting out, she's kind of scuffed a lot of it out of the way, but I need to sort that out. Now there's empty beds here. They are waiting for hardy annuals or half or tenders to go in. So the soil has been cleared, weeded. There's a sort of semi-permanent bark mulch down on one side. And on the other side, tons and tons of weeds have come since I last prepped it. And I've just left them because we don't want bare soil at any time of the year. It's all going to put loads of nutrients back into the soil. And I thought actually I might touch on that in a future episode. But what I have discovered about this bed as you go into the field on the left is that there's a huge patch of bindweed. Now, I don't remember this being here last year, and the bed shape has not changed. So I'm not quite sure why it wasn't so bad last year, because I'm sure it can't have just blown in. Anyway, there's a huge patch of it, and I'm just leaving it. And just before I plant the bed up, I will dig it all out properly, because it's one of those weeds that you just really, really need to get rid of. But I don't know that you ever fully get rid of it. It's pretty tenacious stuff. But I will do my best, because the real problem I find with bindweed, I mean, all the perennial weeds have got their own problems, but bindweed, it grows and twists up the plant as it grows, and it just strangles things, distorts the shape, messes around with things, loops plants together, and just grows incredibly fast. And it can just really damage things, especially if you don't notice it. Like, I had zinnias in here last year. They did really badly. They're not going to go back in this position again. But I did find that I had missed some bits of bindweed because the leaves were just kind of really well camouflaged. So growing up against the fence panels, this is my row of sweet peas that I'm doing. They have just sat here for, I don't know, I think they've been out a couple of weeks now and done absolutely diddly squat. But they have loved the heat, which is interesting because there's a point at which sweet peas just cannot stand the heat. But I guess maybe these guys are so young, they don't really care. Anyway, they've loved it. They're getting plenty of water. They're really, really enjoying it. And they finally got going and started to self-twine onto the Heras fence panels. So I don't need to worry about tying them in. So that is one less job to do, which is great. Now off to the right is the echinacea. And they are just looking fantastic. They're probably about a foot, at least a foot and a half tall. Some of them are a little bit taller. And I managed to get the plant spacings on those absolutely spot on, which was a miracle because I didn't know what I was doing. So I don't stake them, don't do any kind of support for them at all. They just do their own thing, and they're lovely. And they're in two staggered rows. And next to them, I've got some dianthus. Now, I think I may have spoken about this either in the last episode or in the one before, saying that the stems weren't very long and they weren't really going to be any good for anything apart from bud vases. They seem to have really enjoyed this heat as well. It's obviously just me that's not enjoying it. They've really enjoyed it, and I've actually got some really decent stem lengths on them. I'm very, very proud of them, actually. I cut some the other day, which I'll talk to you about later, and they've lasted really well in the vase. They're just lovely. We definitely need like a carnation revival, because I know they're sort of a bit out of touch and a bit old-fashioned-y and stuff, but when you look at them, it's just, they remind me of ice creams, that, like if you had a vanilla ice cream sticking out the top of a cone. They're just all frilly, and maybe that's just the style of flowers I like. Frilly roses, frilly dahlias, anything frilly. I'm 100% down for that. Then you move into what used to be called the old perennial section and is now called the new perennial section. And this is where I put plugs that I'd grown, that I'd ordered years ago, put them in, and then They did really, really well. And so I decided to just shift them down to the far end of the field where Nigel cleared all the turf for me. And sorry, the chickens are just having a squabble. So I decided to move them all down there because they really didn't need any support. They didn't need to be the first thing that you saw when you came into the field. They can just be totally self-sufficient down somewhere out of the way. What I wanted to keep my eye on was new things, small things. And so when I bought my perennial plugs last November, I bought some geums, some verbascums, some physostegia. I thought I'd bought Veronica, but I can't seem to find that anywhere, so maybe I'm mistaken. So the new perennials have gone into this bed. So I used to have Achillea and some other bits and pieces, Eryngiums. They've all shifted, and now we're left with some geums, and we've also got some Heleniums and Rudbeckia, which for some reason I decided not to move. I don't know, maybe I just forgot to do that. Also, I should say I am recording in the field by the side of a busy dual carriageway, and because the weather's nice, the road is full of boy racers, and statistically there will also be one emergency services vehicle that goes past as well with a siren blaring, because it just always happens every time I'm up here recording. So I apologise for the sound quality and for the sound of young men in sporty cars with no exhaust coming past. I think we might have another one coming in a minute. They're a nuisance. Anyway, back to this. So there's some Heleniums, Rudbeckias, there's baby geums, there's also tons of Achillea left over. Thought I'd got it all out, but that stuff does not give up. Then we have Physostegia, verbascums, some snapdragons that I pulled out of a green waste bin over the winter. They've overwintered in pots, got planted out. There's some agastache, some pink anemones, and some astrantia, which have finally elongated their stems. I thought they were going to be a dud again. They were so short last year, weren't really sellable. This year, they confuse me. They flower on these incredibly short stems, and then all of a sudden the stems just elongate. So maybe I cut them too short last year in frustration, I don't know. And then scattered throughout this entire bed in a totally random fashion is Orlia. Now this is the bed that I grew my Orlia in last year. Harvested quite a lot of seed because I didn't sell it all. It wasn't ready for when it was actually required. And then they've self-seeded. These guys are maybe 2 foot tall, absolutely beautiful, all just suddenly burst into flower in the last 2 days with the heat. And they're just absolutely stunning. So I will kind of deadhead them because I'm not selling anything this week, which I'll tell you about later. There will be a part 2 to this episode when I'm not on the field. And behind this bed is a whole bed of foxgloves, and they're looking really terrific. One of them is at least 5 foot tall, and I've already cut some of those. And again, I'll come and talk to you about that afterwards as well. Then we move down and we've got the dahlia bed, which is pretty enormous. 3 rows, staggered planting, including the new ones that Richard Bailey, my dahlia mentor, gave me at the end of last year. And pretty much every dahlia has sprouted. I haven't done a count in the last week, actually. But they're all looking really promising, really nice big shoots on those. And the dahlia bed is also full of marigolds because I grew marigolds last year and they're absolutely everywhere. Also, some random cornflowers. It's literally every time I turn around, I'm faced with a 3 foot tall cornflower plant, which is amazing. But also a little bit disconcerting because I'm just in the wrong place. Now, next to Roosty's house are the newly planted out tiny seedlings. So there's a ton of Ami. There's lots of panicum. There's my Clarkia, which was the wrong one that went out, but they're doing fine. More Orlia, 3 different batches, so they're all at different stages. And behind these guys are the bed of Cephalaria, which are so dramatic and incredible. I've cut 1 flower off them already just to see what it looks like and how it performs. The rest of the plants are just superb. And I did think I should maybe have put some supports in for them, but I didn't have very many. And I think I got a bit lazy and I thought I'll just see what they do. Well, they've put on a phenomenal amount of growth. One of the plants is at least 6 foot tall, which is just extraordinary. They seem very happy there. So I'm just going to keep an eye on those. The one that I've cut, the 1 flower head that I cut, is so beautiful. It's this gorgeous butter lemon colour, and it's so pretty. It's got a nice little scent to it as well, which I wasn't expecting. I've got my first cornflower out. So this is one of these random guys. You just turn around and suddenly there's like a whole cornflower in your face. This is a white one, which is very pretty. Oh, that's lovely. Hello, my friend. Now, just past this, I've actually got some upturned hanging baskets on the floor, the wire ones. And I have discovered that when things self-seed on the field, the temptation is to go and put a cane or a stake or something and tie the plants to them. But I found that my eye didn't always pick up on the stakes and I would walk into them by accident. So what I've started to do now is put an upturned empty hanging basket like a cloche over the top of these seedlings that are coming up in the middle of the paths, because I'm not going to move anybody now. They have to stay there. But I just want to put this hanging basket over the top of it. And it means that if I do walk into it, it stops me dead rather than just that horrible crunch of a bamboo stick when you realize you've trodden on it and knocked it over. Now we get down to the IBCs, so the water storage tanks, numbers 2 and 3. They've each got just over 600 litres in each one, so that's 1,200 for the two of them. And I've been so tight with the watering. And my other half is badgering me in a good way to buy another IBC that fits in the back of his van that we can actually take to go and get more water, bring it on site if we need to, so that we don't have to use anybody's wheelie bins this year, because he's absolutely put his foot down. He's not having wheelie bins in the back of his van this year, and quite right too. But I'm holding off on doing it just for the moment because I really want to be very careful with the water and just see what I can manage with while still producing great plants, because it's just a thing I have in my head that it's not just about excess of everything. I want to see if I can get really decent quality plants that are grown in a lean style. And I want to harvest the seed from it and grow those plants next year so that they are adapted to the environment they're in. And the baby plants in the future are going to have this sort of built-in genetic knowledge that this is a place where you don't get pampered, you don't get much water, you just got to crack on and still be brilliant. So that's what I'm aiming to do. So in front of the IBCs, we've got the old perennials. So there's a whole ton of pink Mexichylia. The eryngiums are in here, which I just love, and they are really nice and tall. Moving on from that, we've got Achillea the Pearl, and these guys are the ones that were planted in the path last year by mistake when I didn't think they were going to do anything. They are pushing up really nicely through the netting, so I'm so pleased I've got them netted, because they did all sorts of wild stuff last year, and they were only suitable for bud vases. There are some heleniums down here as well. Okay, that's great. And then there's also some baby phlox, which again I bought as plugs, put on a really good amount of growth. They look terribly small and thin, but they've actually really got themselves together. I'm very proud of those guys, actually. The backdrop to all of this is 2 beds of roses. So there's about 70 or so in here. They're all doing really well. The rugosas tend to just flower for like 1 day or something, and then the petals just fall off. Could be because of the heat at the moment. The other roses have been, in my opinion, quite slow to get going. Some of them don't seem to have done anything in a couple of months, but the rest of them kind of got their groove on. One of the climbers is slowly defoliating itself. I don't know what the problem with that is, but there is clearly some kind of issue. The other 2 are fine. And this guy, every time I turn up, he's just lost a whole load more leaves. And then, so slowly moving down the end of the rose beds, we've got all the peonies. They're just opening. Oh, that's great. Peonies, bearded iris. You see, I was going to talk about this in the second part of the episode about why I've made the decision not to actually sell anything this week. And it's because it's hard enough for me as a beginner to work out when things are going to be at the right stage for picking for what the florist needs, never mind factoring in a heat wave. So I thought this is not the week to start launching my Shopify store and announcing to florists that I've got X, Y, and Z, because I guess cannot predict at the moment the effect of 24 hours or 48 hours of 35 degrees centigrade temperatures, because even the nighttime temperatures are only dropping to about 20, which is absolutely mental. In front of the peonies and the bearded iris, we've got my little hydrangea limelight section. I've got one pink Annabelle in there. The rest of them are all limelights. And next to them are the first lot of hardy annuals that got planted out. So it's a whole load more of Amy. And then my agrostemma, which is the first time I've grown this. These guys are looking very promising. Poker straight, upright, really confident looking plants. I love those. Next to them, it's the next lot of agrostemma, which look quite different from when they're like 9 inches tall to when they're just 1 inch tall. A couple of statice that have gone in already, and then some stocks. They're really tiny. They were probably too small to go out, but I didn't want to have them stuck at home. Bed 4 is mostly, up until this point anyway, foliage only bed. So I've got eucalyptus, my first lilac, because I really wanted to make a start with lilacs, some phlox, some Japanese anemones, white ones. Then, interestingly, this is the section with the scabious. Now, you remember the story that I moved the scabious, and they were these huge plants. They'd overwintered. I was so proud of them, but they'd all kind of flopped over. So I moved them, tied them up with canes in a very, very painstakingly labor-intensive, expensive fashion. And then half of them snuffed it, which is just really, really annoying. But the ones that have not snuffed it are just about to flower, and I'm so excited about that. Then we've got raspberries, then we've got some rebes, sedum, pittosporum, physocarpus, a very random huge poppy, which I've no idea where that even came from. It's just appeared and it's beautiful, obviously in the wrong place. Everything is. Oh, here we go. Here's the siren. See, I could have put money on that happening every time. Next, we've got the scabious bed. They're doing fine. I planted a lot of scabious this year because I just love them so much. And then we move into the saponaria bed. These are the guys who've finally gone vertical after weeks and weeks and weeks of being at all sorts of funny angles. And then finally the stocks in the last little bed. And this is just the small amount of stuff that I've managed to get out. Oh, another white cornflower. Hello. This is just a small amount of stuff that I've actually managed to get out in the plot. In the next part of the episode, I'm going to talk to you about what's going on in the greenhouse, or rather what's not going on in the greenhouse, because I had to do an emergency evacuation of it because of the heat. So I'll come back and talk to you about that in part 2. All right, welcome back to part 2. I'm still on the field, and I thought actually it would be really, really nice to record this on the field, and then when I get home, I can just check it and upload it. So I mentioned a couple of things in the first part, and I thought I'm going to talk about them a little bit in this second part. So I decided not to sell anything this week, and I really only decided over the weekend. I did have the option of selling maybe a few bits through the hub, which is up and running, and that's very exciting. But I decided not to because I can't guarantee the quality of the stems in this weather. I was growing in Heatwave and droughts last year, but I was very much a novice, and I'm so paranoid about supplying flowers that aren't the absolute best quality, because I do feel like you only have a couple of shots with florists, and I don't want to supply anything that isn't going to be absolutely perfect. And these are quite unprecedented temperatures for us, and therefore to try as a new grower to supply something perhaps to a new florist when there's like this crazy weather going on just seems like one challenge just too many for me. And I can't really predict well enough what's going to be ready when the florist actually wants it. So there's always a bit of a lead time, and you might say, okay, well, in a week's time, I'm confident I'm going to have 10 of these or 20 of these or whatever. And when the temperatures are just spiking like this and then staying very high, the flowers are actually going over very, very quickly. So I just think, well, that also makes it very difficult, because then I might be messing around with stem volumes, never mind not even being sure if the quality is good enough. And I've noticed a couple of growers in the last few days on Instagram also saying that they're not selling this week either. So I think we're all very much like hedging our bets and just thinking better to be safe and not supply anything than supply anything that is poor quality. So actually, let me just back up and explain something, because I have been so busy recently. You may have gauged this from listening to these episodes, that I actually forgot that I should be selling stuff. I've been so focused on all of the seedlings, all the different stages, I was going to say the frost, but I actually didn't realize we were having a frost, so I missed that. But, the temperatures, there's just been a lot. There's a lot going on. May's a really busy month, and I'm running around quite a lot. And I actually had completely forgotten about selling, which sounds absolutely bonkers, I know. But I just hadn't. And I was driving away from the plot last week and I was just admiring my foxgloves, thinking, gosh, they are so beautiful. And they look to be at exactly the right point for cutting. And then this huge brainwave just obviously occurred. And I was like, why on earth am I not selling anything? Like, I've spent months building a Shopify store. I'm a member of my local flower hub. There's absolutely no reason why I shouldn't be selling. And I just completely forgot about it. So a couple of days later, I went back to the plot and I made a list of everything that I had that was saleable, the volumes, the stem lengths, all of the bits and pieces necessary. And then, of course, I actually had a little bit more than I thought, because when you just like really properly have a bit of a rummage around, there was actually more on the plot than it first seemed. But then, of course, the forecast came in and I thought, this is just crazy. I don't even know how to manage this. So I just made the executive CEO decision. I'm just not selling anything this week, and that's done and dusted. But here's a question. What am I doing with the stems that are ready, but I'm not going to sell them? Now, I actually cut some of these foxgloves. They are beautiful. I cut 3 stems, so the ones that were pretty much ready. And by that, I mean like about a quarter to a third of the lower flowers were actually open. The rest of them were all closed. So stunning. And what I've done is cut them, put them in a bucket, and just taken loads of photos. One of the things that my wedding and event florist gave me as feedback when I was showing her the Spotify shop was she wanted to see more shots of the flowers, I think in a way that reflected perhaps the more saleability side of them. So rather than like a shot of the bed in the field where it's hard perhaps to get perspective or scale, there are other things in the shots, other plants. There might be a chicken house, there might be a fence panel that, she wanted to see more, I suppose, basically more professional photographs. So I thought, right, this is something that I need to improve. I took lots and lots of photos last year, but they weren't necessarily like the most professional quality photos that you would use if you were selling a product. So I thought, well, what can I do with these flowers that I'm going to cut because they're just going to go over and be wasted, and obviously want to encourage the plant to grow more? I will just use them to improve my library of photographs. So I put these stems in a bucket up against the door of the feed room, which is a nice wooden backdrop, took lots of photos. They will go up on the website and on the Shopify store as well. I've also been practicing my hand ties, my spiral hand ties, getting better at that slowly. Definitely helps if I don't overthink it. Overthinking for me is the biggest killer of everything. So I just thought, be really relaxed, put some music on, distract myself, and just wiggle around with it. And I made some, I think, very pretty little tiny things, nothing enormous at all. And also taking lots of photos of those. I'm also trying to work hard to improve my sort of flower compatibility, if you like. So what flowers go particularly well. Sometimes I go on Instagram and just see what florists do to try and learn more about what works well together and what doesn't. And I'm still practicing getting a nice mixture of things in a hand tie. Not that I'm going to be selling hand ties, but it's just something that I want to learn more about how to do. And I like to know how well things work together. The other thing you can do with stems that you cut but you can't sell, obviously you can give them away to friends and family and stuff like that, or you can put them in your own home, is just stick them somewhere and just watch them for a week. Just see how well they actually last in a vase. See how well they perform. See if they're scented. See how fast or slow they open. See how they move. See how they sit with other things. Just stare at them. I think this is really helpful. Sometimes, you can look at flowers, or I look at flowers on the plot, and I watch them for ages, and then I cut them, put them in buckets, and off they go. And I don't see what happens to them after that. Now, one of the reasons I wanted to sell to wedding event florists, and there were many reasons, but one of them was that I didn't want to have to worry too much about the vase life. Wedding and events, by their very nature, last a day, maybe a weekend, and then that's it. You're done and dusted. So you can supply, or I can supply, flowers that are much more open, much more sort of voluptuous and blooming, if you like. I don't have to worry about this bud crack stage, if you like, because my florist does not want things that she has to wait a week for them to open. She needs to know that she's going to get them from me on a certain day, and 2 days later they can go into the venue and they look fabulous. They don't have to last for a week, 10 days. So I am practicing with that as well. Now, the trouble I've had is I can't bring any of these arrangements indoors because it's just too hot. So I've got little arrangements in shady places of the garden, outside the door, all sorts of places, and I'm just watching them. And I've got these beautiful ones. I might put a photo on Instagram if I'm brave enough, of this tiny little vase collection that I did, which has got some white dianthus in, the carnations. It's got my very first rose that I've cut from the plot, which is tiny. That was oh gosh, no, the name's completely gone. Anyway, it's very pretty. It smells very pretty. There's some more lyre in there. There's a little bit of asparagus. There's some ferns, and it was super pretty. And there's also my one cephalaria, which is the giant yellow scabious that I cut, and it smells gorgeous. And every time I go in and out, I look down. I'm like, I made that. They're my first flowers of this year that I've actually cut and done something sensible with them. And all the colours, and this is a total fluke, all the colours just like match really, really nicely. It looks like something you would see on a bridal table at a wedding or something. Not that I'm a good enough florist, or not that I'm a florist and I'm not good enough. I'm just saying that there's some kind of magic, there's some kind of alchemy which happens. It doesn't happen to me very often, but I'm 100% taking credit for this one. Sometimes it just works. And I've made some horrible arrangements, I can tell you. I've made them and I've thought that is disgusting, taking it all apart, because I have no handle on colors and what goes together, and I'm still learning. But this little tiny little posy thing in a vase, oh my goodness, gorgeous. Okay, so the other thing I was going to tell you about, what's happening in the greenhouse. Well, nothing is happening in the greenhouse because it was so incredibly hot I'm so out of kilter with the days this week because of the bank holiday, which I know was only yesterday. But anyway, at some point since I spoke to you last, I have evacuated everything in a sort of emergency evacuation style from the greenhouse, and everything is either on the hardening off table, or I had to take a whole load of the shelves out of the greenhouse, which was epic, I can tell you, because there's not much space in my garden. So all of the trays had to come out, then the shelving had to come out, then the trays had to go back on the shelving. So there's pretty much nothing left in the greenhouse apart from those dahlia tubers that I bought from Dahlia Beach a couple of weeks ago, and they seem to just absolutely love the crazy heat in there. So I have taken an extra perspex panel out of the greenhouse. I have left the panel inside the greenhouse so that I don't lose this one, because I have already lost one and just cannot find it anywhere. But the dahlia they're tubers, they're doing extremely well and they're sprouting really nicely. So I'm just going to leave them in the greenhouse, but everybody else is outside under a parasol and looking very happy, growing along very nicely, getting watered. Oh, huge bug flew past. I don't even know what that was. Yeah, they're all really happy. So I am hoping to get most of them in the ground this weekend. I won't be able to do it all in a weekend, but another boy racer. But I will try my hardest to get them in the ground. Like, all of the hardening off is happening now, and we are forecast to get showers all of next week. Not vast quantities, but once this heat wave breaks, we will definitely get some bad weather. So that's like the perfect time to put these guys out. And then they'll just all be in one place, and I can just keep an eye on them there. So that is what's happening with all of that. And yeah, that's literally everything that's going on at the moment. It's very exciting. I hope, excuse me, if you are growing, that everything is working out for you and you are managing in this heat. It is really, really challenging, especially for the animals. The dogs don't like it. The chickens don't like it. The ducks seem absolutely fine, which is amazing because they're so well insulated. They must be like little tiny hot water bottles inside all those feathers. But yeah, they're all managing. I keep telling everybody it's going to cool down. In fact, it's going to be like 4 or 5 degrees cooler tomorrow, which sounds incredible. And then by the weekend, it's going to be, I don't know, maybe 28, 29, something like that anyway. But I'll be back on Friday with the next episode, and probably a plant profile. Oh dear, honestly, I'm literally garbling all of my words tonight. The continuation of the plant profile series. And I'm also interviewing my wedding and event florist this week, which is hugely exciting. And I can't wait to get that episode out to you as soon as possible. So as always, I love to hear from you. Drop me a DM, send me an email, click the link at the bottom of the show notes, which sends me a message automatically. Leave a comment on Spotify, because I'm quite good at finding those now. And if you have any questions you want to ask me about anything at all, then do please feel free to get in touch. I love hearing from you. So have a great week. Take care of yourself, and I'll catch you on Friday.